In the city of Atlanta, our mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms, created history yesterday. Yesterday, our mayor has decided that she would like to have whatever evidence that the city of Atlanta has in their possession in the Wayne Williams Atlanta child murders. He is listed as a serial killer for all of the 30 murders in Atlanta, even though, ladies and gentlemen, he only went to court and was tried and convicted for killing 2 adult men. The other 28 children that are on the list, their cases never went to trial, even though the GBI has put all of those murders on Wayne Williams. There's a lot of people in the city who have for 40 years believed that Wayne Williams was not the only person, if he was, or some people even believe he was not the murderer. Coming up in this hour, we're going to hear from Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. We are also going to talk to Wayne Williams' attorney, Lyn Whatley, and we're going to talk to DA Paul Howard about this case. You're also going to hear some clips of my interviews with Wayne Williams and some of the parents that lost their children. It's going to be a chilling hour on the People's Station V-103, and we ask everybody to call in, give us your opinion, but also remember, there are 28 unsolved murders of children here in our city that have never been solved. And it's a travesty that we're 40 years later. But finally, Mayor Bottoms has stepped forward and done what most people feel should have been done many, many, many years ago. On the phone, I have Will Packer, who is a part of the Atlanta Child Murder series that is taking place Saturday night on Investigation Discovery, a.k.a. the ID channel. And he is on the phone. He is on a plane, ladies and gentlemen, so it's going to sound a little weird. But, Will, thank you, and congratulations for this series that is about to come out, and especially for letting me be a part of it.
Man, that's so huge, Frank. And you and I together are part of this documentary, as you know, which is bringing national attention to this case. It's helping her to do what she's doing, which is re-examining evidence, decades-old evidence, to see if they can get some clarity. But you and I are a big part of this, Frank, man, because these people deserve to have their stories told.
For everybody listening, the Atlanta Child Murders is a 3-part docuseries premiering tomorrow night, March 23rd, 9 on Investigation Discovery. This is going to be real big. The docuseries tells the story of 29 black youth who were murdered over the course of 23 terrifying months. You guys did a great job, my friend. I'm so proud of you, and this is a huge responsibility that you've taken on. One last question. Why did you do it, Will Packer?
As you know, Frank, this is different for me. This is my first doc, and I did it because I should, because I'm supposed to, and because I can. In the position I'm in, Frank, I have some power and I have some responsibility. So because I have the ability to tell stories, there's nothing wrong with my Kevin Hart comedies or Tiffany Haddish comedies or whatever else I may do. I'll continue to do that. But if I don't use the power that I have to tell a story like this, one of the most important stories in this country's history, if I don't use what I can to bring this to light, then I'm remiss, and I'm wasting the opportunity that I have to use my power to let those that don't have a voice get a bigger platform, and that's what we're trying to do here.
Amen. Bro, once again, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this history. I really appreciate you, Will Packer.
No, thank you, Frank. Everybody tune in tomorrow night. It goes there. We talk about it. We talk about all the conspiracy theories. Was it Wayne? Was it not? But most importantly, we talk with these victims' families and give them a voice and let them tell what it was like during that time. They haven't had a chance to do that. So thank you, Frank, for giving me a platform.
It is 8:06, 6 minutes after 8 o'clock on the Morning Culture on V103. We are joined by a woman who has just set history, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Frank.
I have to tell you, when I was alerted that there was a press conference, I right away went to my phone, and I was watching it on my cell phone. And it was chilling when I heard you reading the children's names and ages. That must have been difficult.
It was, and it makes me emotional now thinking about it. And It's interesting because I was 9 in 1979, and it was a backdrop of my childhood. And in so many ways, it feels like these fresh wounds have been opened for me personally, but I know for the families, they've never gone away. They've always been open. And I think because I'm a mother of 4, and my children are ages 8 to 16, it has resonated with me in a very different way. And I can't tell you how surprised I am at how emotional it continues to make me. But watching Mrs. Leach and watching the pain that is still within her for so many reasons, just asking for some lasting memorial and some recognition that her child mattered. And when I was watching the news, the national news last week, and I saw that there were some cold cases from 1999 and some DNA had been run through some databases, I went to Chief Shields and asked, was there anything else that we could do? Had we done all that we could do? She immediately reached out to the GBI, and here we are today, where they are going to take a fresh look at all of the evidence that we may not find anything, but I think the most important part is that we are calling their names and we're saying to these families they matter, and we haven't forgotten these children. And so I'm grateful to the extent that gives the families any amount of peace just to know that somebody is still remembering their children. And when I looked at the pictures today, they have all of their pictures on the front page of the paper. These were us. These were children my age who should be parents and grandparents and should have had full lives and should be taking care of their parents now. And they were our children, and they were just snatched from us. And we still don't have all of the answers. It's just
How would you feel? Let me ask you this question. You have 2 children.
I have 4.
4, excuse me. Yes. You have 4 children. Your youngest is how old?
My twins are 8.
8. Imagine your twin doesn't come home from school. The police don't go to your house. The case doesn't get investigated. And finally, they come to your house and tell you we found the body to identify. How would that feel as a mother?
I don't even want to know what that feels like. What I know is you have to think about where we were as a city in 1979. It was a very different city. We didn't have cell phones here, didn't have social media. And you, by and large, and I heard Will with one of the mothers the other day saying she didn't even have a landline. She had to go to a payphone to call and ask had her daughter arrived at her friend's house. And so I think in that regard, it's difficult for us to judge what was done and what was not done. What I do know is that Maynard Jackson cared about our community.
Yeah.
I think that all I can say as mayor in 2019 is what I said on yesterday: when you know better, you do better.
Okay.
And we are attempting to do better. And knowing what I know of Maynard Jackson and the leadership in this city, they cared about the Black community. It may not have played out in the way that we would expect it to play out in 2019. But I think the most important part is 40 years later, we have people like Will Packer, and we have people like the young men who are doing the podcast on this, who are still recognizing that these children have by and large been forgotten to our history, to our city, and to our nation as a whole, not to these families. And it could be today. And if it were today, would anybody give a voice to our children? Would anyone even recognize that there's a pattern with our children? We talk about this all the time. When African American women or children and men go missing, does anybody notice? Do they get national attention? So we know it's something we still struggle with.
You know, I had an opportunity to go into Hancock State Prison and talk to Wayne. And before I left him, I asked him to deliver a message, and this is what he said.
I would do everything in my power to try and help these family members to get answers that they deserve. These people deserve answers, even though they may not ever find out who killed their children. They at least deserve to know what happened. Several parents don't even know how their kids died. This hurts. This hurts me. I'm not a parent. And one of the things I miss most about incarceration is missing being a parent. I never got a chance to raise a family. These are things that I would want to do.
I want you, before we go, give a message to the mothers.
Okay, and this is the first opportunity I've ever had to do that. And I just want to say this from the heart. Wayne Williams, me, I have never hurt, I have never killed anybody in my life. This is not a part of my nature. I wasn't raised this way. My parents were good parents. They were good people. And when I look at that camera, I see people like I said, Miss Mathis, Miss Leach and all. And you deserve some answers to what happened. I don't have all the answers because I don't know what happened. I feel your hurt, and if there is anything that can come out of this that can benefit you, that is the most important thing to me, is that you get the answers and you get the healing that you deserve and have been denied for so long. And whatever that costs, and whatever I can do to do it, I'm willing to pay that cost. But this is for you. Just give us the opportunity to get some answers, because you deserve this just as much and even more so than I do.
When you hear Wayne Williams speak, what do you think?
No, the irony is Wayne Williams actually went to the high school that I attended.
Yeah.
And a few years ahead of me. And he lived not very far from my grandparents' house. And whenever I see him, that immediately comes to my mind, because I don't know what the jury saw. I know what I've read. So I'm not judging his innocence or guilt, but what I know is he represents our community in very much the same way these children were a part of our community. And I think that is, again, what, for me, and I know so many people who were in Atlanta at that time, that is the emotional connection that we all have. It could have been any of us. And it could have been our families. And I hope that he is sincere. And I think that the sentiment really is what we all feel. These parents deserve answers. And that's why, for me, on yesterday, it was important to call the names, because by and large, this part of our history has somehow not become about the children and about the families and about their lingering hurt. It's become about a bunch of other stuff, a lot of it related to Wayne Williams and was he guilty or was he not guilty? I don't know.
Right.
But I also don't know that we've done all that we can do to help provide some closure. And I, I'm a praying woman, and I said, Lord, I don't know why this is so heavy on my heart. I don't know what this is about, but I do hope that something will come from this. And it may be just peace for families, just to know that we still remember.
We're going to take a break. We're going to talk with Paul Howard, because what you did was actually pull together a bunch of people. You used your influence and your power to pull people together for a cause, which I have to tell you, it was very emotional for me yesterday. I was so proud of you, because I said, this is what these people have been waiting for 40 years, is somebody just to say, we care. It is 8:27 on the People Station, V-103, The Morning Culture. We are talking about the big announcement that was made yesterday by our mayor, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, when she announced the retesting or testing of anything we can with the technology that we have now for the Atlanta child murders. Yesterday, she made history with this.
And I can't stand here today and not call their names. They were Edward Smith, age 14, Alfred Evans, age 13, Milton Harvey, age 14, Yusuf Bell, age 9, Angel Lanier, age 12, Jeffrey Mathis, age 10, Eric Middlebrooks, age 14, Chris Richardson, age 12, Latanya Wilson, age 7, Anthony Carter, age 9, Earl Terrell, age 10, Clifford Jones, 13, Darren Glass, 10, Charles Stevens, 12, Aaron Jackson, 9, Patrick Rogers, 16, Luby Jeter, 14, Terry Pugh, 15, Patrick Baltazar, 11, Curtis Walker, 15, Joseph Bell, 15, Timothy Hill, 13, William Barrett, 17. Adults, Eddie Duncan, 21, Larry Rogers, 20, Michael McIntosh, 23, Jimmy Ray Payne, 21, John Porter, 28, Nathaniel Carter, 27.
As I played that, I see you tearing up, Mayor.
It's again, it is just fascinating to me how emotional this makes me. I mean, I'm the mayor, so I really work on not showing emotion in public quite often, and this is something that just still hurts me so deeply. And I'm sure it's compounded by the fact that I remember it, I lived it, and I remember my grandmother and my aunt calling my mother from Chicago, begging her to send me to live in Chicago because they were killing black children in Atlanta. And I remember just the fear and so many other names. I think what resonates with me, I remember so many other names, and I remember being at church and hearing they had taken a little girl out of her house, and I remember the places I was when they had found another body, and the irony, the first two bodies were found on Niskey Lake Road, which is less than 2 miles from where I live now. And again, I think for me, putting myself in the place and the shoes of these mothers, which I can't begin to imagine, and to watch Mrs. Leach on yesterday, and it is still so raw, and for her to feel as if nobody cared, and 40 years later to simply, she just wants a plaque.
Yeah.
She's not asking for something extravagant, just something to say that our city remembered her child.
When I talked to Miss Leach, this is what she said, ladies and gentlemen. And your name is?
Katherine Leach.
And your son's name?
Curtis Walker.
Miss Leach, you and I had an opportunity to speak on the radio.
Yeah.
And we were talking about your story, an incredible story.
Yeah.
About your son,
Yes.
who was one of the victims in the Atlanta child murders cases.
Yes.
If you can, we're going to take you back again today and talk about that time period.
All right.
That time period in Atlanta. Tell me about how people were feeling in the neighborhood during that time.
Well, during that time, when the kids were being slain and killed, the neighborhood was just wild and crazy and scary. I was scared for my kids, because we was afraid that someone was going to take them.
Mm-hmm. I talked to a woman this morning who was also a mother of one of the children murdered, and she said it was to the point where she didn't even trust the police.
I didn't either.
The police were here to protect you. You didn't trust the police?
No.
You didn't trust anybody?
No, nobody.
Tell us about your son at that time.
He was 13.
What was he like?
A mama boy.
A mama's boy?
Yeah, he was the mama bear. Loved his mama.
Okay.
Yeah. Stuck around his mother all the time. He stayed around me all the time.
Tell us about that day.
That day, they had went to school, and they got out of school, and Antonio and Curtis left the house, going to Byron Gun Shop on Bankhead to do a little cleaning around, and they polish up the guns and do little things, take out trash. Antonio come home, but Curtis didn't come back. And at that time, when Antonio rise, I said, well, where's Curtis? I said, I told y'all don't go out because they killing kids. And he said, Mama, Curtis is going down to Kmart to help somebody put their, the ladies put their groceries in the bag. And so I say, I waited and waited and waited and waited. He never showed up. I went out and I began to look for him, and I began to go up and down Bankhead with tears in my eyes, calling his name, and he never answered. So I came back to the house. It was just like I heard him call me. I came back to the house. I asked my oldest boy there. I asked him, I said, he done got in the house? They said, no, Mama, because they was all in the window waiting for me to come back. Thought I was going to come back with their brother. And so I called the police. And I told him, I said, I can't find my son is missing. I feel like this. If I call you, 19 already been missing.
Right.
And if I called the police at that particular time and told them my child was missing, the police department told me, you have to wait 24 hours. Just stay by the phone. He might call, or he might come in, or you can call me when he come home. But he never showed up. So, I feel like when I called them and reported that my child was missing, and they knew that all these other kids were missing, they should have jumped on it like that. Time I called them, they should have jumped on it and went straight out there to see can they find my child.
They never did?
No.
How long was it that he went missing?
3 weeks.
In that 3 weeks' time, did anybody from the police department call you?
No.
Any investigator come by?
No. No.
Did you go out several times looking?
I went out several times, and then my neighborhood, they was out searching around, They gathered up a little search, the neighborhood did. They got up a little search, and they went around and searching.
Nobody.
When I noticed the thing, I would look at them and put them out the water.
Why do you think the police weren't looking for him?
Because if they was out looking, somebody should have came to me and told me, say, well, Miss Leach, we're gonna try to find Curtis. We're gonna do the best that we can, and we know, we sorry, but we out looking for him. I didn't get that.
Nothing.
And it's not, and it don't feel good waiting 3 weeks, and your child ain't come home, and ain't nobody told you nothing. Oh no.
How was it that you found out it was your son Curtis?
I had a lady that named Mary. She stayed about 2 doors down from me, and she stayed with me the whole full term from the time he was missing till I put him in the ground. She made a phone call. She said, Catherine, watch the TV, because she said this could be Curtis that they pulling out the water. So I sit down on the floor and watch the TV, and I didn't want to think it was Curtis. In a way, I felt like it was Curtis, but I didn't really want to think that was him until I think it was an hour, maybe 2 hours. Mayor Jackson came to my house, and the other detective, whoever, and they told me to sit down, and they just started staring at me, and they told me to say, I'm sorry, Miss Leach, but that was Curtis. And I bust out the stream though. Nobody couldn't catch me.
Where'd you go?
I don't know.
Just running?
Just running. See, it's not that they found him, it's the name when they call his name.
Right.
And because I already had seen that, but when they called his name, it just did something to me.
So when you were watching television and you saw them pull the body out of the water, that was the very first time in 3 weeks.
Since I heard anything or seen anything.
No police, no investigators, nobody.
Only somebody came to my house, and when I had a little rug on the floor, and that was over there in Bornholm. I had a little carpet on the floor. Someone came in and got little fabrics off of my floor like I was the murderer. That's sick.
They took carpet fibers
off of my floor. Sure did. Like I was the murderer or something.
After they called, Mayor Jackson came over, the mayor, said his name. That's when it got to you.
That's when it got to me.
After they found out it was Curtis, did they then come to talk to you?
Nope. Nobody came by and talked to me, not to my knowledge. I ain't heard nobody came and talk to me.
Do you feel like you've got closure? Do you feel like you know, or you're complete, or would you like to know what really happened?
I want to know. I'm going to know. I'm going to know.
Wayne Williams is in jail serving 2 life sentences.
Yep.
Do you think he did it?
No, I don't think Wayne Williams did it. No, I don't. I always said that from the beginning.
He said he didn't.
That he didn't murder my child. No, he did not.
And you feel like you're going to find out, though?
Yeah, no doubt.
Talk to me about your belief in God.
I believe in God because when this happened, when Curtis got missing, when this happened, I didn't know anything about God. And when he was missing, I felt like I didn't have nothing to live for. I went to the bathroom and I shaved all my hair off of my head, and I took my razor blade and put it to the wrist of my arm. Because I feel like didn't nobody care, because didn't nobody come and show me nothing, didn't nobody tell me nothing. And I feel like the whole world was against me. Like it seemed like that didn't nobody care about how I felt or what I was going through. And one Sunday morning I got up and I began to go out and catch the Marlin bus. And I went into this church, and that's where I found Christ. See, when God called you, you got to come.
And you feel he's your strength now?
He's my strength, he's my everything. God got his hands in this. Man don't have anything to do with this. God got his hands in it. The reason I say that God got his hands in, because this is what I've been praying from the time that I put him in the ground to up to now. And I see that God has answered my prayer.
How do you feel about that, Mayor?
Oh gosh, this part of this history I never heard, and it immediately struck me that Kmart store is directly across the street from the church I grew up in, and to hear her tell the story of her son and the pain that you still feel, and I now know why this has resonated with my spirit so much. She said it. This is what she's been praying for. And, you know, I said it earlier, I can't describe to you why this is so emotional for me and why this has just resonated with me, but she just spoke it.
She did. Paul Howard is on the phone. Paul?
Hey, Frank.
How are you, sir? Ladies and gentlemen, DA Paul Howard is on the phone. We are joined by Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. Mr. Howard.
Good morning, Madam Mayor.
Good morning, Paul.
You doing all right today?
Yes, and thank you again for being there with us on yesterday. I really appreciate it.
As I tell you, I'm always at your beck and call.
Let's talk about this for a second. You've been involved in this case even when the cases were reopened, when evidence was retested. Where are we from a DA's perspective? Where are we with getting information that we may not have already gotten?
First of all, hey, Frank, I want to thank you for this program this morning. I don't know whether many people realize that you followed this for so many years. I don't know whether the public remembers that several years ago we tested dog hairs in the Wayne Williams case. And in fact, we came on V-103 and announced the results of from that testing. So where we are now, the mayor has presented our city and our county with a great opportunity. And I believe that opportunity, as she has so eloquently described, is to attempt to satisfy so many of the unanswered questions from family members whose children were killed some 40 years ago. So what we are planning to do is to use any available new technology that might involve DNA technology or any of those kinds of particular technologies to retest whatever evidence is available. And what we're hoping to do is once we finish, we will then make a decision about where we go from that point. But whatever that testing concludes, we want to be able to come back and make those findings known to our community.
Let me ask you this, because I remember when the dog hair was tested and it came back, it wasn't, and if you can explain this, it did not say that the hair was Wayne Williams' dog. It was more of a probability. Can you explain that?
That's correct. And because the science was not so exact, it wasn't like fingerprints, it wasn't like DNA, but they were able to tell us essentially that it did not exclude Wayne Williams.
Right.
But the dog hairs presented the possibility that those dog hairs might have come from Wayne Williams's dog.
Ladies and gentlemen, DA Paul Howard. Paul, thank you very much. It's 8:44. Mayor Bottoms, again, thank you for what you've done.
Well, thank you, Frank, for keeping this top of mind for us because, you know, so many things about Atlanta we take for granted. And we, in so many ways, don't remember our history and acknowledge our history. And sometimes it takes people with a fresh perspective to keep us to keep what matters top of mind. And that's what you do each and every day. You keep us informed and you remind us of what's important. And just even listening to Mrs. Leach, it just really made me think about my response to any number of situations as mayor and things that I should have done differently and how I can do things differently. Because while some things may be routine for us, people's lives, and it impacts families for generations. So I'm grateful to you and Will and so many others that we're speaking their names and their memory is still with us, and we will do better by our children and our communities.
Ladies and gentlemen, our Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms. We're going to take a quick break here on V-103. When we come back, we will hear from Wayne Williams' attorney. We are going to extend part of our coverage in the reinvestigation into the Atlanta child murders. Back in 2004, I had an opportunity to visit Hancock State Prison and visit with Wayne Williams. He had wrote me several letters and asked that I go speak to him. And this is the initial question that I had for Wayne about why, after all of these years, it's been 40 years, why he wanted to talk.
Simple answer to that one. Number one, Frank, and it's the image that you portray and the fact that I see that the people of Atlanta, as demonstrated through your show and others, are intelligent. They want to know things. And this is why I decided to talk, because I'll be very honest with you. A lot of the other media outlets do not exactly have our best interest in mind. And when I say that, I mean the black community particularly. So I felt that this was an opportunity that I would like to take advantage of for the first time to address the black community specifically about Wayne Williams, who Wayne is. It's a much different Atlanta now than it was then for two reasons. Number one, everybody knew each other then, and that's one thing that worried me about this case. Almost nobody in the professional business in Atlanta had not heard of Wayne Williams. They knew who I was. So therefore, I couldn't have possibly been this quote-unquote killer lurking around in the darkness, because if that was the case, somebody would have spotted Wayne Williams from the jump. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you if that was the case. Atlanta was that type of city.
We have on the phone Lyn Whatley, who is Wayne Williams' attorney. He's been with Wayne since the trial and after. He's on the phone with us now. Lynn?
I'm doing just fine, just fine.
The question I would have is, yesterday, as you saw Mayor Bottoms make the announcement yesterday, what were your initial thoughts? And did you expect it to happen yesterday?
Well, I had been alerted that something was going to happen. They were going to announce something about the Atlanta child murders. But I'm not surprised because there's a lot of activity going on now. I think that the mayor wanted to get ahead of the news that she knew was going to be coming out about the Atlanta child murders. Wanted to be on the right side of history.
How long have you represented Wayne?
It's nearing 40 years now.
Why do you continue to do that when obviously I know you're not getting any money for this, but you stand by your client? Why is that?
Because there's been no evidence showing what he did was wrong. And the appeals courts that have addressed this case over the years have abrogated and overruled prior binding precedent of the court of their opinions. And I'm convinced this case is based on political leanings that supersede justice. And will go down, he's a political prisoner.
Wow.
He's a political prisoner.
Let me ask you this, Lynn, because people are listening, and as I watched the news reports last night, many of the commentators who are older now, who were actually reporters back when it happened, they all go to the trial and they say to their people, whether it was WSB, whether it was CBS, they were all saying that Wayne went to trial, and because of the fiber evidence, he was convicted. What would your answer be to that?
First of all, a fingerprint could not identify the perpetrator of a crime if everyone had the same fingerprint, right?
Right.
The same, you make that analogy with fibers. They used probabilities to prove the case, to make the jury believe fiber evidence was like a fingerprint.
Okay.
That is totally wrong.
So they made it seem like the fibers that they found in Wayne's house and on these victims was one of a kind.
Yeah.
And it wasn't.
In fact, I'll give you something that nobody else has.
Okay.
The federal government has condemned FBI crime lab did.
Really?
Paul Howard has known of this condemnation of the FBI crime lab in the Williams case since 2009.
The FBI condemned that evidence.
Right.
One other question that has been very confusing for a lot of people is, after I aired the interview with Wayne Williams back in 2005, a couple years later, they did retest the fibers of the dog hair. And many people are going forward saying that the dog hairs found on the victim was Wayne Williams' dog. Can you explain that?
That's totally wrong and misstated. What it proved was that it was inconclusive. We had hoped that it would show that his dog wasn't involved. Paul Howard took that, turned it around, and tried to say that it showed that his dog was involved. The experts said just the opposite. And so it was mitochondrial DNA.
Probability of the female lineage.
Yeah.
So it could have been one of a number of dogs.
Oh, yeah. That's what was wrong with this case.
Wow.
Let me say this. The city is going, and the GBI are going to retest any evidence. They need a third party. Their hands are not clean. They need to have a third party involved in this process.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lyn Whatley, an exclusive interview with Wayne Williams' attorney. You've heard from Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms today. You have heard from DA Paul Howard. You have heard from some of the victims' parents. And you've heard from Lyn Whatley, Wayne Williams' attorney. We want to hear from you, Atlanta. We're the People Station, V-103.